and out of the depths of darkness and the curse that ESCOM has placed on us, we emerge. The reactionaries emerge. Welcome to Reactionary Opinions, ladies and gentlemen. We have survived load shedding. Apologies for being late, but again, welcome to yet another episode of Reactionary Opinions, the most based and reactionary show on the African continent. Look at me apologizing for ESCOM's screw-ups. Look at this, eh? No, I do not apologize. I do not apologize, folks, for being late.
I'm sorry, I burnt the roast. Please don't hit me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. President, and all of that nonsense. But anyway, welcome, Mr. Patriarch. How are you doing this evening?
Doing good. I have just relocated to the kitchen. I felt bad in previous streams. I'd have to kick the missus off YouTube or whatever, but I felt bad doing that, so I decided to move to the kitchen and jack in via wire. So I've done that, and thankfully the internet looks good, and I have just finished my latest offering. I have created my fascism video, my first video in the series, so that is out, and that turned out pretty good. I got some good constructive criticism, and I'm working on the next one, which will be out much sooner than the last one, which took like 3 weeks. But yeah, so that's what I'm up to. Absolutely.
I enjoyed that video very much, and I'm glad to see that you have ventured into the woman's domain, the kitchen. You know, your wife is not at this point pregnant and barefoot, but she should be soon, I guess. Huh?
Yeah. Yes, but she does. She is not wearing shoes, and she is with a baby right now, so that does make me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, that does compensate for.
Yeah. And I have the Queen's Own Earl Grey tea right here, and some half-eaten pork chops, so I'm good for the night.
There we go. You sorted. So Russell the Based, how are you doing there, my man?
I'm doing great. I must admit, I'm going to talk up Dylan's video that he released in his first part in his series. I absolutely loved it. A couple of things. It was so good, I managed to overlook all the stuff that I thought I could criticize because I went, but I just loved the content, So
I'm a regular.
If anybody.
So while Dylan's talking and he wants to get his viewership up and stuff on his YouTube channel, Dylan, why don't you go and get while we're talking, why don't you go and get the link for the video and put it in the chat section over there?
Oh, sure, and
everyone can go and get a history lesson on fascism and the earliest stages of fascism. Anyway, look at us, guys. We're just getting sidetracked and talking nonsense. Our guest this evening, folks, is none other than Citizen Guardian. You might have seen Citizen Guardian in the comment section and on Chris Wyatt's show as well, a good mate of ours, Chris Wyatt. Brilliant, interesting guy. He is a prepper. But, we were chatting earlier about this. But first of all, welcome. Citizen Guardian or Dabble, how are you doing there, man?
Thanks. It's good to be here with you guys, and look forward to the conversation. I think that watching your opinions as well and seeing the way that your perspective is in general, I absolutely believe that we could, at least change one or two people's minds on the way and the general perspective about survival and preparation itself. So it's good to be here, and thank you for that.
Yeah. So in case you guys don't know, Dabble is a Eastern Cape boykie, just like us, a East Cape heartland, from the motherland. So good to have another fellow East Cape hardcore guy with us this evening. Now, interesting enough, myself and Dabble were chatting before we came on the stream, and there is a very, very clear and obvious stereotype that is attached to prepping. Now, you've seen those prepper shows on TV and stuff where you got like these crazy people that dig these bomb shelters and stock up with a lifetime supply of baked beans and all kinds of bizarre things, and everyone just like laughs at them and says, ha 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 ha, look at these crazy people and stuff. So yeah, Russell, snack time. Come on, man. Yes, bro. This is anyway. So Michael McLaren. Michael, are you?
That's what you got to do to hold on to those gains. You got to chow down on that biltong after lifting heavy.
Yeah, that's it. You got to, all that heavy lifting, heavy gains, heavy eating. Michael, are you my cousin Neville's son? My dad probably put you up to this channel, huh? I bet you he did. Anyway, so there's this clear stereotype that's attached to prepping and stuff, and we'll get into the questions, but I think we should deal with this first. Citizen Guardian is not some sort of whack job, who wants to go and live on the fringes of society and believes that the world's just going to crumble and fall and burst into flames spontaneously tomorrow, kind of thing, and the zombie apocalypse is coming and blah 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 blah. So why don't you just sort of give us an idea, Citizen Guardian, of what your view of prepping is, and how you can sort of clear up that sort of stereotype of prepping and stuff.
So to start off, would it be okay if I took the floor for like 2 minutes and just gave you a little bit of background regarding that? Is that all right?
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, perfect. So to start off, I've been doing this. I've been doing preparation now for about 10 years. But I've lived my life as an outdoorsman. I've spent a vast majority of my life hiking, camping, mountain biking, motocross, pretty much anything to do with the outdoors. I'm absolutely fascinated by it. And to give you some clarity regarding the way that people usually see preparation and self-reliance, what happens is that there are people that are on the fringe of society and they really give it a bad name, preparation and self-reliance itself. And that's unfortunate. And I'm just trying to make as many people as aware as possible that it really is something that comes down to the love of your family and your community. It really, I can't express enough how important it is for people to just take a brief look at the past and see exactly what's happened to humanity. And the fact is that even though we live in a world where social media gives us the comfort that everything's normal, we should be essentially taking the right steps to protect those that we love in the case of something wild happening. Like, for example, if I had to speak to you a year back and say to you that there was going to be a global pandemic on the way and that we were going to have, for example, food shortages or anything like that, you'd let me know that the chances of that are incredibly null to none. So it's exactly that same thing about what has happened in the past. And we just kind of pretend that nothing could ever really happen to us. And that, I think, is a very dangerous thought to have. It's not my reason for being a prepper, quote unquote prepper. I'm not even the biggest fan of the term. I prefer survivalist because of the connotation that's attached and the stigma that's attached to preparation and preppers. I love the term survivalist for that reason as well. I just have taken the right precautionary measures to make sure that I don't end up in a situation where I've got my daughter looking in my eyes and asking me for food and she's hungry and I don't have the capability to help her. I'll never allow myself to get to that point. And I strongly suggest that people just take a look at what's happening currently on a global scale and what's happened in the past and put those two together, and they'd be able to see exactly why it's so important to be self-reliant and not the bunker style, Mad Max type of situation. I definitely believe that it's small steps and also having the right mindset and realizing that knowledge is more important than anything else. Sorry to blabber on. It's a topic that I'm really passionate about. So when you get me started on talking about it, I'm like, okay, so it's go time. But yeah, what's your opinion on that?
No, I agree 100% with that because, and I mentioned this point to Dabble earlier on when we were chatting on WhatsApp, that it's vitally important, I think, for people to know how to know how to survive. I mean, the reality of it is that us as humans are not some sort of beings that are displaced from nature, that are supposed to be sort of separate from nature. We are supposed to be controlling nature. We are supposed to be the people that are supposed to be in charge of nature, because that's according to the great chain of being. Some people that are new to the show might have heard us talking about the great chain of being, which is a level or a chain of hierarchy that we believe in very strongly, and humans are pretty high up on that chain. Animals, nature, all of these sort of things are below that. We are called to be stewards of this world. Okay, and if we cannot sort of conquer nature as our ancestors did, there's that great meme, Russell. I was telling Dabble about that great meme with those cavemen fighting off bears and wolves and stuff with sticks and stones, and it says on the meme, it says, your ancestors fought off bears and wolves that were trying to eat them with sticks and stones. Act like you descend from them. This is the...
Yeah, here's what it was word for word. It was, our ancestors survived an ice age and megafauna with defending themselves against megafauna with nothing but pointed sticks.
Yeah.
Act like you
exactly.
descend from
so this
them.
Is the whole thing. This is the whole thing, is that humans are supposed to be able to control these things, okay? But I would go out on a limb and say probably a good, 90% of humans on this earth right now would perish if they didn't have the creature comforts that we have at this point in time in our in society. How many people do you know that can fish, that can hunt, that can do all of these things? And that's very that's very rare. What are your thoughts on that, Dabble?
Absolutely, and I think that's a great share from yourself and Russell as well. And I just want to add, I'll get right to that in a second, but I just want to add in the fact that I love that Russell's very comfortable with himself on camera. He's very approachable, and it's definitely, when watching you guys as well, your opinions that you share. You three are individuals, and it really is something that is great for viewership as well. It makes it unique, the fact that you each have your own perspective and outlook, and you each are individuals, and I really love that. Sorry to go off on a tangent just about that. I just really enjoy you guys' show, and I love what you guys are doing. So from my side, when you speak about the fact that most people won't survive, we can look in history, and if we understand what happened in history, when people weren't prepared for anything, that's when things really fell apart. There's a famous quote that says, the time to fix your roof is not when it's raining. So essentially what that means is basically just before anything really happens to people, they should definitely take certain precautionary measures to just prepare themselves as well. This is the problem, and this is exactly what I'm trying to address via YouTube, as it's a good medium for informing people. If everybody took a little bit of steps on their own and took a little bit of that responsibility as well, I definitely believe that in the case of any events occurring, and we could speak about the type of events that could occur as well on a very straightforward, down-to-earth way as well, we could essentially help people to look after themselves via information and not completely give up if they were to face anything that could potentially threaten them or their families. So I think that sharing information and knowledge and getting people more aware of what we used to know. I mean, if you look back into past generations, people used to absolutely know a lot more about how to fix things, how to do fishing, as you mentioned, how to lay traps, how to do gardening, the most simple understanding of how to not only gardening, but to understand the way that soil works and different types of soils and how crop rotation itself goes around. To understand crop rotation and to see what plants take certain nutrients out of the ground and what plants put those same nutrients back over time, and just to understand how to grow the simplest things. Most people haven't even grown a sweet potato, which is mind-boggling to me, that it's something that's so straightforward that you just buy a sweet potato or a regular potato. They're called yams, obviously, in the States as well. But essentially what people can do is they can just, with the smallest little processes, to start improving their own self-reliance capability And that's something that you can't wait until things really get bad and then decide, okay, I'm going to start some gardening. You will eventually, I've done it from experience, and I've been gardening most of my life. And I can tell you that the only way that you can really learn is by trial and error while you are gardening. And gardening is one of the most important things about the whole self-reliance topic, because you can't really expect yourself to, if the food chain gets cut for some reason, how are you going to feed the people that you care about? And I think that that's something that's so important. People often look past that. And as you said as well, they really, I know that due to lockdown, it's a bit different, but people hardly even get to see their own country. South Africa is an amazingly beautiful country, and it's only really the tourists that come here that really get to see the beauty of our country. And most of us lie ignorant in the fact that our country, and then we start having these negative perceptions of our country as well. But I think that we should be proud of being South African. I love the United States, different topic, but I absolutely think that we should be proud of where we're from. And we're Africans. We may not be the texture or something of the regular perception of what an African is, but born in South Africa makes me feel proud to be an African. And that's not something that we should shy away from. Like if we look at the history and stuff like that without getting into too much detail, it really comes down to being people that can be proud of where you're from. Because if you hate where you're from, and if you have a lot of complaints about where you're from, or you've got a lot of fears about the future of where you're from, and you're not taking any steps to really alter that, then you're just basically having dry complaints for no reason, and you're moaning about things. And this is what I find a lot of people doing. They moan about the country and the state that it's in and that type of thing, but yet they don't think 2 steps ahead of like, okay, the country could become unstable. Then what do you do in that case? In Venezuela, before things really got bad due to socialism in Venezuela, what people used to do is a lot of people were caught off guard. And that's not what I want for people in general. So I think that the more people that are interested in self-reliance, the better it can be for people to take care of themselves if the eventuality of something was occurring. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. This is the whole thing. And I think that is interestingly enough, the way that there's having grown up in the Eastern Cape, in sort of rural Eastern Cape and stuff, people look at me funny when I talk like this, but there's a connection that you develop with the actual physical land. And I don't just mean like the actual area and stuff. I mean the actual physical land, like the sand, the soil, the stones, the trees, the rivers, everything that's around you. You develop a physical connection with it, and so much so that if I go home to the Eastern Cape to visit my folks or whatever it is, if I go home to the Eastern Cape, you feel that connection. It's like a little spark, and I think that is also, again, the connection with man and nature that needs to be sort of rekindled. And that's what I think Citizen Guardian is trying to do with his whole channel and his YouTube thing. By the way, guys, his Citizen Guardian's channel is in the links in the description of the video. Go and subscribe to his channel. He's got some really, really cool videos, practical videos on how to practically do these survival things and stuff. But anyway, Dylan, you mentioned something in the private chat over there about something that is quite close to you, which you were as a young kid and stuff. Why don't you just sort of talk to us about that as well? And then,
well, so most probably none of you know, but except for Scott and them. But I was myself on a time a Boy Scout, made it all the way through Eagle Scout, and the Scout motto is "Be prepared." So that might seem a little silly or whatever, it's just something kids do, but it is a mindset, and it's something that I think we can all benefit from. So it's just plain and simple. What does it mean to be a prepper or a survivalist? Be prepared. That's all. So be prepared for likely and unlikely eventualities. So like, for example, it's just a small thing, but it's not at all what I'm sure, Citizen Guardian's sort of up to. But when I heard this lockdown was coming, like my my Scout motto went off in my head. I'm like, be prepared. Okay. So this lockdown's coming. What's that going to mean? There's going to be some maybe some interruptions in supply chain. So I just want to get my hands on some non-perishable food. So in the event, I'm not going to go crazy, but in the event that for whatever reason there's a hiccup in getting what I need to get, I'll have food for a while. And I have squirreled away sort of piece by piece, just that. So I have, probably a week or two's worth of food here in my house that, I've slowly acquired over time and, intended to sort of keep there just in case anything happens. And that's just all it is. It's preparedness. So, and there's other ways, of course, you could be prepared. Be prepared for, like just an example. I thought, what if something happens where, I need to break into something, or just for whatever reason, I thought I needed a crowbar, and I'm going to keep the crowbar in my car, to fight off, bergies or whatever. But there was actually an occasion where I did need that crowbar. I'm not joking. I was driving down the road from, I think, Worcester or something, and I see this guy swerve off the road drunk, and then he careens off into the ditch, and he rolls his car, and he's incapacitated, and he's trapped in his car, and everyone doesn't know what to do. And I pull off on the road, and I'm like, I have my crowbar. So then I broke into his car, and we were able to, make sure that I was okay while the cops got arrived. It's just little things like that. So taking steps, small steps over time gradually, so that in the eventuality where, you got load shedding, but you've stocked up on candles. There's an interruption in the supply chains, but you've stocked up on food. Somebody's trapped in their car, but you have a crowbar in your backseat. Things like that to sort of prepare for eventualities that you can, handle better than the average person.
Yeah, so this is also very important, and this is what brings me to the next sort of thing that I wanted to discuss is, it's all fair and well saying, you need to have a crowbar or baked beans or whatever it is to survive, but what sort of aspects are there that you actually need to cover in order to survive in sort of a full-on sort of blackout scenario, Citizen Guardian? So what are the main things that you need to have covered?
Necessities.
Yeah, there's quite an overly used term. It's the 5 C's. It's not just the 5 C's of survival. That's something that I'd like to get into as well. But the rule of threes, that you can live. It's essentially that you can live 3 minutes without air. You can live 3 hours without provision shelter as well. You can live 3 days without water, and you can live 3 weeks without food. Basically, it boils down to that, and the most important assets as well. So the rule of threes is incredibly important, and also that comes down to water. It's always going to be water. Most of the time, when people run into situations, they die of dehydration. Essentially, that's the first thing that you'll run into. Then there's each of their own categories. So it's definitely water is something that's incredibly important. Food, shelter, community. I would actually put community very closely tied with water. Surprisingly, community is something that people overlook at times. But if you can't depend and rely on the people that are around you, and you have no people around you, it's going to be quite tough for you to survive a long-term situation, because you're going to have situations that you run into where you need other human beings. And as humans, we need other people in our lives as well. It's part of your psyche that if you don't have people around you whatsoever, you'll absolutely run into situations where
What is this? What is this crazy communist talk? How can you say that? We're all individuals, Citizen Guardian. We don't need other people. We're individuals. What's community?
Yeah.
No, but I agree with you 100%.
It's called lone wolfing. It's exactly that. It's lone wolfing is the ideology that you can go out there for an extended period of time and survive on your own, and it's absolutely ridiculous. You do maybe stand a chance if you have enough willpower and if you have a decent kit with you. But essentially, yeah. So it's just water, food, shelter, community, and hygiene is quite important as well. So in short, that is the actual answer that you were looking for. Sorry to go off on a tangent. That's topic, Scott. You get me started speaking about self-reliance, and it's something I'm passionate about, and then I'll just go on. Sorry about that.
So Russell, do you want to ask about, so Russell obviously doesn't have the notes or anything in front of him for the show and stuff, but I'll sort of talk about this. But the This is a question that Russell had about are there ways to sort of prep your neighborhood, your own neighborhood, your community and stuff? Russell, you might want to sort of elaborate on that. I don't know.
Yeah, look, you spoke specifically community. So, you know, like what you said, I'm a firm believer if you're going to get if a situation is going to go down, you're going to need as much coordinating with the people that live near you as possible. So basically, you know, a situation happens, you're going to need teamwork. You know, you're going to be able to sort yourself out much better in a team than you are on your own. So the idea is that you know, you know, how would like you would get like a neighborhood, a situation happens and a suburban neighborhood decides to work together. All right. So obviously, depending on the situation, they'll have to do things like secure themselves for security, for food and water, all these sorts of things. What are the key things that how would somebody put together a disaster plan for a small neighborhood? How would you approach that? You know, like how would somebody put together an actual plan? Or of even you can't be too specific because you don't know what's actually going to happen, but a broad-based things to cover as much, a simple but cover as much as possible situation.
It's an incredibly good question as well, Russell. I strongly believe that question is something that people should be asking themselves in general. How do they prepare their community? And I think the best way to honestly do that is by, if you have a neighborhood watch group at the moment, for example, that's in your immediate community of your suburb, for example, or of your location, to try and assist the neighborhood watch groups, if you can at all possible. Get connected with the people that are in your community via any means possible as well. You know, perhaps if you belong to a church, your church congregation of the local area, neighborhood watch groups, there's just being on good terms with as many people as possible. What you're going to struggle, and something that I want to mention about that as well, Russell, is what you're going to find is if you do start speaking to people about preparation and what would we really do in the case of an emergency situation, most people are going to cold shoulder you. And that's the most hardest part that you'll actually confront, is the fact that, and you can check this up later if you want to, there's a term that's called normalcy bias. And normalcy bias, N-O-R-M-A-L-C-Y, normalcy bias, or otherwise known as ostrich syndrome, is the same as an ostrich, where you put your head in the sand, and you want to speak about community, absolutely, and you want to speak about community. What happens is that your brain, as it is, and I've studied into this extensively, what happens is that human beings are incapable of accepting fate. And they think that there's no way at all that anything bad is ever really going to happen to you. So what your subconscious does is it makes sure that you can be at all times as cold shoulder as much as you possibly can against the idea of preparation and self-reliance. Because if you start to actually conceptualize the actual scenarios of SHTF, like an apocalyptic situation, if your brain actually starts to digest that, it can actually like really make you sick because of your nerves and worry. And so what the human mind does is it actually projects a defensive barrier so that anybody that's speaking to you about survival or prepping or anything like that, most people are going to be as negative about that as possible. You'll find out. I encourage you to go out and randomly with one of your mates that you might know, start speaking a little bit about self-reliance and preparation and see how quickly they either try and change the topic or they just don't want to talk about it. It's called normalcy bias, and it's an actual study that's done on the human mind and subconscious that goes into why people surprisingly could care less about self-reliance. So what you're saying, Russell, and to answer your question, just to go back to what your question was, it's an incredibly good question, and you should test the waters with people when speaking about it in a way that isn't overbearing. You don't want to overbear people, and if you do get into self-reliance and you become a quote-unquote prepper, you don't want to come across as a fanatic in any way, so you just want to laugh on the topic. So I hope that answers what you're asking about.
Yeah, no, look, definitely, I get what you're saying. I fully agree with the normalcy bias thing. I've always maintained, it's like kind of like a thought that I've got in my head in everything that I approach, is just because it's never happened before doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. And just because things have always happened a particular way in the past does not mean they're going to happen that way in the future. You know what I mean? It's one of the biggest mistakes people can make, is thinking that things are going to go on as they have before. From all sorts of mistakes you can make. Oh, it used to be like this, but things change. So yeah, but yeah, that was really good input. But I think a very clear thing what you mentioned in the idea of being prepared, it's before you get to any plan, any idea, any situation where you're going to build your own food garden or drop a well point or arm yourself or anything. From what I've heard you say so far, it is very much more before anything, before any of that happens. It's actually a state of mind. Your mind is incredibly powerful when you are in a situation of emergency. And that's what they teach guys in the army. They basically say, things aren't going to work out. Things aren't going to work out the way you think they're going to do. But you need to react, and you will find a way around it. And that is the mindset that that I can see a guy like yourself, who's preparing, the way you explain things. That is what I find as key. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that you wanted to say something, Scott. I don't know if you want to hold that thought, but as well, what you're saying, Russell, and what I think is important is from our side, to be quite frank with you, it's I'm going to answer your question now, Russell. I'm just thinking of the best way, most accurate way to answer that as well.
While you think about that, Double, while you think about that answer, I just want to get into the comments section quickly. But I just wanted to say, how's it, Michael? How's it, Pa? Robin McLaren, he's here. Welcome, Michael McLaren. All the McLarens are in the house tonight. I see that. There we go. The Goose. How's it going there, buddy? Welcome. There we go. The good old Dagbreker. Welcome. Good to see you. Good to have you here. But yeah, anyway, thanks for joining, guys. Al die Afrikaanse manne is hierso en ons gaan nie die show in Afrikaans doen, so don't get too excited. Anyway, Dabble, you want to go and give that an answer there?
Yeah, so sorry, I like to often think about things as clearly as possible before giving like a good response. So as you spoke about that, there are so many different responses to exactly that, and I'll get to the primary one. The mindset and the human will and your mind and the way that people's perspective is usually, your mind is absolutely the one thing that'll get you through everything as well, and your will is strongly attached to that. So having the mindset that you have to really go into it and just be cautious of what you do, and life's like a game of chess in a lot of ways, right? Like everything that you've got to do, you've got to try and think like 1 or 2 steps ahead. And when you mention mindset, that's one of the most key points about all of this. Because we're all born and we know nothing about the world. We're born and we were all babies at one point. And this is something that I've always lived with, this ideology as well, is that we were all babies at one point and we knew nothing about this world. We knew nothing about hatred. We knew nothing about politics. We knew nothing about the things that separate people from one another. And as we grow older, we sometimes will hear things about people, for example, and then we build up a narrative like the preppers, what people think of preppers and that. We build up certain stigmas attached to people, and then we carry those on. And your mindset, the mind itself, as that develops as you're getting older, it definitely comes down to realizing that the mind and everything that you are and everything that you've experienced is so capable of incredibly good choices that you basically can make at the right decisions. When it does come down to it, people have survived with no gear, with no preparation, with no idea of what self-reliance was. They've been through situations with where just the human raw intent and your instincts kick in. And it's at those moments where you're absolutely able to overcome anything. And that's the main message of what I'm trying to get out there, is that, of course, having a bug-out bag is a great thing, and self-reliance, understanding and like the knowledge of the outdoors and your plants that are in your local regions and that. But the most important thing is the mind. And Russell mentioning that is something that's absolutely key. If you have the right mindset, and if you are doing it out of love, you'll be surprised how much further you can get along. I'm just about to release, I've been working on some videos regarding survival stories and people that have actually overcome horrible situations with no gear whatsoever, with no previous training, no military training behind them whatsoever. And they were able to overcome situations because of the human instinct and the human mind. That was what I was thinking when you asked me that question, and then I just had to think of a way to format that correctly. So, sure.
No,
Yeah,
look, it's great,
brilliant.
perfect explanation.
Yeah, so that also, we were given this nature by God. This we were created. Again, Dylan's going to have a little chuckle on his face here. The great chain of being is never wrong. It's just perfect every time. We were created this way to, like I said earlier on, to rule over nature. And it doesn't, sure, you have to prepare yourself because of, the actual physicality of it and the mental stuff and all that. You have to prepare yourself for it. But a lot of the times, like you said, the instinct sort of kicks in, that survival instinct, because you'd be amazed at how powerful the human body is actually, how strong the human body actually is, and how powerful the human will is actually as well. And this also ties into a lot of things that are happening around us with regards to, specifically with regards to lockdown and stuff. And there's a lot of pessimistic people out there that say, there's no point in doing anything, because we're doomed already, kind of thing. And that's just anti-survival instinct. That's absolute utter nonsense, because there's no airplanes flying over me, bombing me with bombs right now and stuff. It's not the end of the world kind of thing. I mean, imagine what the Oaks living in bomb shelters during the Blitz and stuff were thinking and stuff. That far outweighs the physical danger than what we're experiencing now. All we need to now be able to control is our mind and our will. And I think that's the most important thing. And it's important for people to understand this, that's how you survive. You control your mind. You keep a level head. And this is so strange because my dad. I made a video about my dad and his time in the Bush War and stuff in Rhodesia and all of that. Those of you that are watching and stuff, you'd probably know me talking about my dad. I talk about my dad quite often. And interesting enough, Dad, if you're listening, my dad taught us this technique for camouflage. I can never remember the technique. It was 3 words. I can never remember the words, but he taught us this way to hide yourself. Essentially, it was the shape of something and the color of something and the light of something. My dad will leave the comment in there, but we'll get to that in a second. But the whole survival thing definitely tied. I lost my train of thought over here talking about my dad, but but the point is that people need to now understand that it's not the end of the world. Okay, even if tomorrow we don't have electricity and there's rampant violence and all that sort of thing, you still have your instinct to rely on. You still have your will to survive. That'll always be there. But it's always good and always important to make sure that you prepare for it and you are prepped for it. Right? Citizen Guardian, do you agree with that?
Yeah, that comes down to just being just being aware of what's happening, to keep your ear to the ground, but to also be cautious of what is happening at the moment. There's a lot of people out there that spread false news as well. So just to keep yourself aware, just to keep yourself in tune with what's happening at the moment as well. I don't know if Mr. Patriarch or Russell also had a bit of a comment on that.
Yeah, Mr. Patriarch, you need to say something. You've been a bit quiet.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just pondering all this. So, as regards the mindset thing, I heard this a while ago, and I'm not exactly sure the efficacy of the statement or not. But one of the leading causes of death in a lot of survival situations is essentially loss of morale, despair. Essentially, people just kind of give up, and they're like, "Oh, I'm screwed," and they just sort of, they just kind of die. And yeah, I guess if I think about my own experiences, I used to, back in the old country in Alaska, I would go camping every year. Once a month, year round, in winter and whatnot. And one of the things that I would try to do is we'd find different scenarios and like little challenges that we'd set for ourselves. So like, okay, you have to sleep for this trip in a man-made shelter using things that you find, or things like that. And doing these little things, developing some degree of competency, whether it's building shelter or finding out what plants are edible within your area and where to find them, or being able to even make fire with flint and magnesium or whatever. These little things do wonders in improving your confidence in these sorts of situations, because you've sort of practiced at least on some rudimentary level. You're not, Bear Grylls or anything, but you understand some basic things that you can do and steps that you need to do in order to, take care of yourself in a survival situation. And I think learning these sorts of things does tremendous good for your psychology if you ever find yourself in a life-threatening situation, because then okay, first shelter, fire, food, water, then you sort of run down your list and sort of kind of what steps you need to take in order to achieve these things. Now, obviously, having moved to South Africa, things are a little different. For one thing, the types of shelter I can build, I wouldn't necessarily. I would have I'd have to do a different strategy. So I can't just hack off, tree limbs or just pull up moss and make a lean-to, because, there's lack of trees and whatnot. So your mileage will vary based on your strategy, but that process of finding out basic things that you can do to take care of certain goals in a survival situation can really take the panic away. When a lot of other people will, lose their shit, you'll be able to say, at least, I'm not the greatest at this, but there are certain things that I can do which will take care of these problems.
Yeah, if I can just chip in there as well. What you were asking about, Scott, and what you were both saying as well, between Patriarch and yourself, what you guys are saying is very important. It really comes down to the chances of you surviving a situation as well, and improving your own confidence and eradicating fear. A lot of that, a lot of your mindset on a certain situation, if a situation had to arise, just knowing that you're capable of doing certain things and that you have a bit of a background in the outdoors, or that you've practiced some of these already. You can watch like thousands of YouTube videos on survival and prepping and all of that. All the information is out there, and I think it's great, and I encourage people to do so. But at the same time, if you don't practice what you're doing, and if you don't familiarize yourself and actually test yourself on occasion, and just doing something as simple as starting your fire when you have a barbecue, for those that are not in South Africa, having like a simple fire to cook food, like just trying to start that fire in different ways, and looking at how different ways affect that fire, and learning what fires last the longest and how you built those certain fires, and analyzing things as much as possible. And it's the lack of self-readiness and the lack of preparation that people do on a mental note that really makes it so that if in the SHTF situation, that they really don't have much of a chance at surviving in the long term because they weren't mentally ready for that. I hope that that answered what you were speaking about more specifically, Scott, and that also ties in, I believe, with Mr. Petrock's opinion as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Hey, you know, that's it. Shape, silhouette, shadow. Yeah, that's the camouflage thing that my dad taught us and stuff. You know, but you know, the thing is as a kid growing up and stuff, you know, camping was a thing. Like it was like a literally every weekend thing. It was just, you know, we would go up to the dam and stuff in my hometown and just camp and catch fish out of the river and cook them on an open flame kind of thing. You don't see that. You don't see that nowadays. Like it's not really, you know, I bet you even when I was growing up, there were kids here in Cape Town that were doing that sort of thing as well. But it's just not. It's not necessarily an exclusively a small town thing. It's just something that is now like people have just sort of adapted to this cushy lifestyle that we live. So they don't really care about having to train people to, or train each other, or train your kids and stuff to fish and to, because they're like, well, the supermarket's down the road there. Why the hell am I going to go and catch a dirty fish out of a river and put it on a grill made out of sticks and stuff?
Because it's fun and it tastes good.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I mean, imagine telling a child that's all he knows is playing video games all day. He's going to be like, hey, the McDonald's is down the road over there. Why the hell am I out going and catching a fish and cooking it on an open, the gross, you know, like that's what they think, you know. But the reality of it is that the supermarkets and stuff are not always going to be there, you know, they're just not. And yeah, anyway, I just want to jump into the comments over here. Dagbreker says, an excellent movie to watch on the lone wolf concept is Into the Wild, the pros and cons of going it alone. Yeah, I've seen that movie. That's actually Eddie Vedder did the soundtrack for that movie.
I actually went to university very close to where that bus was.
Yeah, so basically the guy went out into the wild and died, you know, by himself. You know, what a horrible life, what a horrible way to die. Get used to actually preparing a bird that you caught for supper. Yeah, that's very true. I remember we went I'll just tell you guys a little campfire story over here. Fire burning. So anyway, we had a friend of ours who had a farm, and it was you know, near my hometown, and this is like, as it's a terrifying story actually, but we went to on their farm, and they had this beautiful valley, and it had like a waterfall and a river that flows through it, and we pitched our tent there, and it was literally out in the middle of nowhere. You know, the guy's father took us out in his old, you know, Land Cruiser. That was like that's like an East Cape farmer's bucky, is a Land Cruiser. And he took us out in this Land Cruiser and dropped us off in the middle of nowhere, and we had to walk down the valley to get to this campsite, beautiful campsite. And all we had was a Jack Russell and a .22 rifle. That was it. And they dropped us there, and anyway, we swam in the river and did clay light and all kinds of stupid stuff, and swam and shot tins and stupid things, you know. And later on that evening, we knew the farm had a problem with baboons, and in the Eastern Cape, baboons are they're a pest, you know, they're everywhere. So we were camping there, and late at night, we're sleeping and stuff, and hear pots and pans clanging outside, and we know it's the baboons outside the tent. And you see these baboons outside the tent, literally hair standing up on their backs and barking outside the tent. It was quite terrifying. And all we had to protect ourselves, there were probably about 6 or 7 baboons, and there were 3 or 4 of us. So yeah, it was quite quite scary. But those are experiences that are fantastic things that teach you more also about wildlife and experiencing these things. I don't know.
Yeah. That's an incredibly good story, actually. That's something that's really interesting. And I've had a few run-ins with wild animals myself. There's been quite a lot of situations with baboons specifically. One of the most, I'd love to tell you about the way that one of the most frightening moments of my life. We were actually camping near Sundays, which is quite close in the Eastern Cape, near Sundays River. And just to see, I've never seen a troop that big of baboons, but there was such a large amount of baboons as well. And just the way that they run with their manes, with the way that their fur moves as well, that intimidating way. And a lot of them were running past our camp, and two of them actually got stuck in between the camp tents as well. So we had quite a situation there, because we had some of the young kids with us, and they were really having like quite a seriously bad experience from that. And then later that evening as well, we also heard them rummaging around the camp, and I can relate to that, as to that actual feeling of knowing that creature out there has been so much more adapted to living in the wild, and has so much more of its primal drive inside it, rather than that's why when you see it, you kind of instantly get fearful. But at the same time, the absolute best situation to really cope with that type of situation is for you to group up. If you guys are like 3 or 4 together, you group up and you stand together quite closely, and you try and make as much noise as possible and be intimidating, make yourself bigger, really come across as, because if there is an alpha there of the baboon, of their troop, that actually might take it as a threat to them. So really be prepared with something in your hands to actually fend off yourself if you needed to. But most of the time, run-ins with baboons aren't that bad, but their capability is what is really scary. So I love that campfire story. That's actually something that's really interesting. But
I distinctly remember in the silhouette. I mean, a baboon's tooth is probably like that big. It's ginormous. But it's interesting what you said about about making yourself seem intimidating and stuff. I remember on the farms, what they also do in the maize fields, because the baboons go into the maize fields, and they'll chow. Russell, I'm just going to mute you quick. And they chow, the maize and millies and that sort of thing. So what the oaks used to do is they would walk through the maize fields to get them out with pangas and dustbin lids, banging on the dustbin lids to chase them out from the fields. And once they come out of the fields, then oaks wait on the other side of the field, and they actually shoot them. So that's because baboons are, again, a pest in these farms. So anyway, I wanted to ask you as well, before we drift too far, way far off of prepping onto farm stories and stuff. I wanted to ask you, do you think it's, we spoke about community and stuff, but do you think it's better to secure your sort of home or neighborhood, or to flee to some sort of designated point? The whole, I'm not necessarily a fan of them and stuff, but the whole Zeitlande idea is to move from the urban areas into the rural areas, and have some sort of plan and stuff for those areas and stuff. Do you think that's a better idea, or do you think in the situation of an absolute blackout or whatever it is, do you think it's better to move to a rural area, or sort of secure your area, like in your house or your community or whatever it is? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the main rule of survival, one of the main rules out there, is scene safety. And essentially what scene safety means is making sure that where you are at that present time is as safe as it possibly can be. Scene safety is incredibly important, and that ties into that closely. However, my honest opinion on this, and to be blatantly honest and open about it, so I think that that there are groups that have the right mentality. I've never really affiliate with any specific groups because of if you've got an enemy, one of the fastest ways to make enemies is by being affiliated with a group that has enemies already. You're just adopting a whole bunch of enemies for yourself, and I don't think that that's the purpose. What happens is, in the situation that we're in now, scene safety is incredibly important, but also sheltering in place. You can, if you have a place that you can go to that's out of cities, for example, then by all means, if you can get there, then that's great. But most of the time, if it was a large enough situation that would occur, the roads are going to be blocked up completely, and you could actually end up causing yourself a large amount of trouble, specifically in this country, by trying to evacuate as fast as possible. Sheltering in place, my honest belief is that I have family that I've got a family member of mine that has a disability to a degree with being able to run through the bush, for example, or move out there. And the type of person I am, I could never leave them. I'd never leave them astray, and so I would do everything that I possibly can to move out of the immediate cities if you had the possibility to do so. But you could never, the thing is that even if you believe that you have a small group and you guys can get out there, what about that group's parents? What about that group's kids? What about that group if they've got somebody with disabilities currently, or if they've got weight issues? Now, when I mention weight issues, I'll actually touch on this quickly. Somebody with weight issues, and I've said this as well when I was speaking to Chris Wyatt, I would much rather take somebody that has a weight problem than somebody that has a mental problem when it does come to the mindset and the way that they treat people around them. Not saying a mental problem with like bipolar or something, I don't care about that. I'm speaking about having if somebody's a sour person to the people around them and they really just try and be either too arrogant or something like that all the time, and they don't want to listen to other people's opinions, I would much rather take somebody that has a disability. Even if somebody in a wheelchair, I'd much rather stay with that person. And as long as you keep moving, it doesn't matter how fast you move. But even somebody that was in a wheelchair, for example, in my situation, it's nobody in a wheelchair, but I'm saying even if it was in that case, I'd much rather take somebody that has a stronger mind and has a stronger will to survive and is actually just a nice person to be around. I don't want to be stuck in the end of the world type scenario with somebody that's going to be constantly negative and negatively affecting any sort of group that we've got. So from myself, when it does come to that, and it's a very good question, should you shelter in place or because I saw that as well, the question pop up when you let me know about that. But the thing is that sheltering in place is actually really important. And these days, the way that communities are intertwined, I don't think that it's going to be I know that there are some extremist groups out there that say certain things, which I won't even say on the stream, towards a certain ethnicity, whatever, that have driven up some hatred in some people on both sides and all three sides and whatever. There's so much integration right now with human nature, and I don't give a damn what somebody looks like, what ethnicity they're from, what gender they're from, what type of weight issues they might be experiencing or anything like that. Survival and preparation, anybody can start doing that. And you'll be surprised, I've got some mates of mine that got a guy that I can think of specifically that's overweight. He's a biggish guy. But I promise you that in every single situation, this guy will outrun you. He has more stamina than most people. He's a better shot. He has a better mentality. He's incredibly intelligent. He has the mindset of somebody that is absolutely a survivalist. So that guy's a bit overweight, but I promise you, when it comes to hauling ASS, I don't want to say any words that might get us into trouble.
Fine, bro. Ass, yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying? You'll be surprised if you let people surprise you, and if you have the mentality to look after people. My YouTube name, Citizen Guardian, is that for a reason, because I want to protect citizens and inform them of how they can look after themselves. And I'll never ever let somebody leave somebody behind, because I would have to live with that for the rest of my life if I did so. So shelter in place, essentially, shelter in place, great idea. If things are getting really bad though, it doesn't matter how fast you move, but get out of the city. Just go to somewhere, if it's a farm, if it's a friend that has a farm, or if it's just a guest house in the middle of nowhere that you have a friend that might be acquainted with the people that have that guest house, for example. Get out of the city as fast as you possibly can, but also never leave people behind, because what does it say about a person in general if they are willing to leave people that they say that they care about? I know it is an extensive answer, but it's a very soft topic. It's a very sensitive topic for me, sheltering in place or bugging out. So I hope that provides a decent enough answer.
No, that's bang on. I think that also, something that any sort of honest military soldier and that sort of thing. Because I mean, let's face it, the military guys are the sort of best equipped for training wise and stuff for these sort of situations. And any honest current military soldier or past military soldier will tell you that the first guys to sort of conk out, or the first guys to fall, are the sort of the windgat, pessimistic, negative types. Those are always going to be the first guys that are going to be the guys that are going to, you know, fall and that sort of thing. So the idea that you know, you have to survive. This is the goal, is to survive at all costs. Okay, what help is it going to be if you're bitching and moaning the whole time? But we're never going to make this, man. We're not going to survive this. What point is it? You know what?
Is funny you're saying this. I know it's reality TV and whatever, but it sounds exactly like those sort of survival shows where you just have that one Duis on the show who's just like, I don't know, man. Exactly like you're saying. He just like drags the whole group down, and everybody else hates
because
him.
the whole point is the whole point is it again, and this, I'm so glad that Citizen Guardian mentioned it, is that it's about a community. You know, you're not. So let's say, for example, the four of us were stuck in the wilderness or whatever. The four of us, I mean, we obviously have differences. We obviously have things that we do differently. We obviously have thoughts about what the situation or how the situation needs to be handled and stuff. But we need to come to some sort of compromise as to what needs to happen. Okay, and how are we going to figure this situation out? And I think that the more sort of windgat oak and stuff is the type of oak that is just going to throw everything completely out, because his opinions are going to be far too strong to even sort of listen to other opinions and other ideas and stuff. So I think that is a good thing. Dad says, have a good look at the guy who has the machine gun. I understand why. Maybe the machine gun is the most windgat guy in the thing. I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, but that's the whole thing. Anyway, we've been going for just over an hour now, and this is a bit of a later show. Citizen Guardian, do you just want to sort of give us some sort of closing comments and stuff before we sort of end up?
Yeah, what I'll close with, and I think the most important thing for me to tell anybody that could be listening at the moment or in the future with the stream recorded, I'm also going to be uploading the stream to my channel of playlists. So anybody that's on my channel in the future and that can come back and support you guys as well. I hope that you don't mind me doing that. What I'll be doing is, if I had your ear for one more minute, and if I could speak to you about anything in conclusion, I would absolutely tell you that you should try to, at best possible, be the best person that you can right now to the people that are in your life, and care for them and love them as much as possible. And it really isn't always easy to get along with everybody in your life as well, but to try and be wise with the things and the way that you approach people as well, and to look after those that are in your life while the things are good. And to not neglect the fact that things could turn upside down. And you can start off by just getting a survival knife, a little water filter if you want to. They're not the best, but to learn how to use water filters is a lot better, make your own and stuff like that. But just slowly start becoming more prepared and more self-reliant, conscious, so that you can actually start like making the right moves in the right way and start a little garden at home. So if I had your ear for like one more minute, and that's really what I would absolutely focus on, is care for the people that are in your life at the moment, and try to be as good of a person on a daily basis as you can, and greet people in the street. Go and see what the community is actually like. If you have a sour approach to everybody out there, you're going to get treated in the same way. But go out there for one day and try and be as happy as you possibly can to others. Try and like greet people. You'll be surprised the way that people are shocked and they greet you back. And just for that second of moment, you get that human to human connection. So start preparing slowly and do what you absolutely can when it does come to looking after those people, and never leave somebody behind, no matter of their age, their gender, ethnicity, whatever the hell. It comes down to human values and loving people and looking after them. So I hope that wraps up exactly what I'm trying to explain to people, and what the message that I'm trying to get out there is that people should just be wise. I'm never going to give a deadline to when I think that things are going to go crazy. We never know. But just slowly start becoming a little bit more aware and conscious of what could potentially happen. And thank you for the stream today. Thank you that you guys have been willing to have me on the show. It's really something that helps me quite a lot, just to become a lot more comfortable with speaking to you guys. And I really love what you guys are doing in the show, and keep on fighting the good fight. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Double. We really do appreciate that. And this is the whole thing, is that myself, Dylan, and Russell are nothing more than just your average guys that are just sort of, hoping to spread truth around there and help people that are perhaps struggling. Talking about helping people that are struggling, a good mate of mine, Justice Killian, who runs a YouTube channel called Agenda 21 on YouTube, is struggling at this point. He's got a beautiful family, 2 beautiful little baby girls, and he lost his job because of lockdown, and is unable to make any sort of income and that sort of thing. And all he does is sort of run his YouTube channel and all of that. So I'm going to post the YouTube channel to his or the YouTube video that in the comment section, in the live comment section now, about his plight. He runs a really, really cool YouTube channel where he talks about the globalist agenda and how the elite are really, really gunning for us normal people. And it breaks my heart to see a guy who's got these 2 beautiful baby girls and a beautiful family, and just trying to make ends meet, and lockdown and the ANC come and destroy his family and all of that, which I can't sit by and watch. So go and check out that video, those of you that are watching. It's actually really, really, he makes some amazing content. Go and subscribe to his channel and all of that. Mr. Patriarch, what do you have to say? Closing statements.
I thought that was really good. I really enjoyed our conversation with Citizen Guardian today. I really like the sort of broad concepts that we talked about: mindset, preparedness, community engagement, things like this. And in the future, I think this is an excellent springboard for future conversations where we could sort of discuss some more nitty gritties. So things that work good for planting in South Africa, different types of training that you should engage in. So I think this is an excellent sort of introductory conversation where next time perhaps we can talk about the sort of nitty gritties of surviving and thriving in South Africa. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.
Definitely. Citizen Guardian, would you be keen to come on again sometime?
Absolutely. But before we go, I really strongly suggest that you guys keep on doing what you're doing at the moment. Every single channel, you guys are slowly in pace and in time growing as well. So I really strongly urge you guys to carry on doing exactly what you're doing now. A lot of people, when they start off streaming and that type of thing, they will have, not that we've got a very low view count, but it is picking up over time. And if you just don't give up on what you guys are doing. And I would also like to hear a closing statement from Russell. I know that usually you're the strong silent type to some degree as well, but I think that those people are usually the people with the highest amount of intelligence. And I'd love to hear your closing thoughts as well, Russell.
High IQ.
Yeah, don't give Russ, don't blow him up now. He's going to come up with these empty barrel, loud noises kind of things, and he's going to call me an empty barrel now.
I don't think so. Go for it, Russell.
It's called action. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed. You confirmed for me, Citizen Guardian, a lot of the things that before you start with any sort of preparedness is to get your mind right. And I think what I really love the way you said that last section there: get tight with people, get close with people, interact well, uplift your human spirit very, very much. That's what's going to pull you through at the end. So we can and I think what I'm in total agreement with you, where if you get the mindset right and those things right, your chances of success, no matter how prepared you actually are so much better, regardless of your actual preparedness. But yeah, in the future, I'd love to have you on the show again. We can talk about things like urban preparedness, nature preparedness. All these sorts of things. What to do in an urban setting, and what to do in a wildlife setting. All these sorts of things. But that would be great to have you back.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
I think that'll be a great conversation to have, sort of the practicalities of all of these things. Yeah. Is there anything else that I wanted to mention? I don't think so. Anyway, thank you so much, Citizen Guardian, for coming on the show. We will definitely have you on soon. Oh, yes, I did want to mention this. Next week, I am out of action. I'm actually doing a course. So for the whole week, I'm out of action. So I don't know, Mr. Patriarch or Russell the Based, you guys can do something on the channel, but I am out of action for next week. But you guys can do something on the show next week. Maybe you and Dylan can have a fascism chat. I don't know. No, but don't.
We'll just sit here. We'll just sit here and look cool, lift weights, and eat biltong or something.
Yeah, that sounds cool. But don't like. When we talk about Dylan's fascism videos and stuff, don't think that we're fascists and stuff. We're not really fascists. We just
historical treatment.
Yeah,
fair and balanced. Like Fox News.
Always have to make that perfectly clear. We're not fascists. We're far too Christian to be fascists.
You hear that, YouTube? You hear us?
You hear that, YouTube? Not fascists. So
we are the resistance.
Yeah, exactly. Ronnie Grove has a brilliant comment over here. Hello, Ronnie. I haven't seen you on the stream over here, but welcome. He says, love God and love your neighbor. God bless. You've got it 100% correct, my man. That is 100% correct. Anyway, thank you so much for joining, folks. Thank you again, Citizen Guardian. Stay reactionary out there, everyone, because remember, God wills it.